Hello and welcome to the tutorial over beginnings and endings of essays. I wanted to do a tutorial that would help students who are struggling with formulating those beginnings, those introductory paragraphs, and also how do you end it effectively. So I'm going to try to give you some good tips that you can use and some helpful templates that I've used in classes that have been quite helpful in the preliminary writing. Now notice that in this presentation that some of those templates, once you fill those gaps in the templates, you may have to tweak what you wrote so that it makes sense. So don't just use these and just plug in stuff and then walk away without looking at what you've actually written. Let's have a look at this. Introductions, as you know, are the beginning of your story, the beginning of your research, the beginning of your essay, and they're extremely important. It's important to hook the reader into your paper. And try to think in terms of if you're in a college class right now and you've just started college level writing, is even though technically you are writing for the instructor in most cases, think of a broader audience that your peers might also be reading your essays, and perhaps you target a specific population of people, specific audience that you want to talk to. So let's look at this. So you're going to explain why the topic is important in your introduction. Sometimes there will be a time frame that's covered. For example, if you're arguing history, you might use a specific time in history in your introduction. Sometimes it might be a vague time frame to give a sense of time, like the past decade or something of that nature. So the introduction also explains the focus or argument being presented. Sometimes an essay might be written as explanatory or simply explaining something, and sometimes it might argue or try to persuade someone else. So there are different ways that it might start out, but these are the main parts of that. And of course, last but not least, let's mention that thesis statement. Thesis statement should really be one statement. In several of my classes, especially at higher level writing levels, I ask students to include the counterpoint in their thesis statement. And you're actually going to see that in here. I think that it's a better way of doing things. It gives a better overview of all of the things that you're going to cover for the reader. So let's go ahead and move forward and have a look. So careful wording in your introduction can help you establish importance. And one thing that I'd like you to keep in mind as you're listening to this and you're getting ready to maybe write your first essay, or you're trying to gather skills to make an essay better, is that importance is important. Regardless of your subject that you're using, you want to choose it based on something that you feel is important, and you want to convey that to the writer that, hey, this thing that I've chosen to tell you is an important thing. So what phrases can you use to convey importance of your topic? That's a good question. There are so many. And keep in mind, again, as a reminder, these templates are meant to be a starting point. And all of these sentences used in here were done in a classroom of college students in entry-level college students who were doing a writing class, and they start with we started with some templates and we formulated some examples and went through different processes. So these really have worked. The first one you'll see here is one of the most significant current discussions in whatever area of study that you might be discussing. So the class came up with one of the most significant current discussions in the medical field is about the safety of radiation therapy. So it's a pretty good sentence and it fits the template, and you really are saying this is important. This is important information that I'm about to tell you. The history of development of, and then if you inserted a subject of your choice, has been thought of as a key factor in. So you're looking at an example here that they came up with was the history of the development of the small engine has been thought of as a key factor in mass production of automobiles. So you see how that subject is plugged in, but the sentence may need a little tweaking to make it work. The next one we've got here is whatever the subject is the leading cause of something else in, and it could be a location. These could go different ways using these templates, but they really help you structure your sentences in a way that are conveying that importance. So we've got here as an example, Ebola is the leading cause of death in many West African countries. So here's another example. In the global economy, something, insert your subject, has become a central issue for. So in this instance, in the global economy, food safety has become a central issue for the United States citizens. So you kind of see how these work. Here's a few more. We've got central to the entire discipline of. So if you're studying in a certain discipline, and frequently instructors will ask you to write within that discipline, you would insert that area, the discipline, the career field is the concept of. So we've got central to the entire discipline of nursing is the concept of making ethical decisions regarding patient care. So you see how this can be tweaked, and it could really bring a higher level, a feeling of importance for your reader. Name of disorder in this case was a template created, is a common disorder characterized by. So if you're wanting to go into certain types of illnesses to discuss, or some other type of disorder such as this one, agoraphobia is a common disorder characterized by having difficulty leaving the house to perform simple everyday tasks. So they're saying it's common, therefore it's important to discuss this. Here's another one. Insert your component, whatever you're talking about, is an important component of understanding something and plays a key role in something. And of course, this entire template could be rearranged to help you do an effective phrase as well. So the gradual change in temperature over time is an important component in understanding global warming and plays a key role in making needed policy changes. So you can see here where the students came up with this, and it's really quite effective and gets the point across. It is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the something, right? So it's significant because of this. So it is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore the rising obesity rates in the United States. So there's another way to convey this, and that's including the time frame. So let's have a look here. The past decade has seen a rapid development of some phenomenon, whatever has happened, in many something. So here we go. The past decade has seen the rapid development of technology in many third world countries. So that is a very good example of using that time frame, the past decade, so that you can convey sort of a feeling of time and what you're going to discuss. Recent developments in, so they're recent, have heightened the need for. So recent developments in terrorist activity has heightened the need for added security measures at airports. And of course, these were generated by students, and I think they did really well, as I'm sure you will. And it really fits that template, and you can see how useful these can be. Here's another one, recent developments in the field of something. So whatever your field of study is maybe, or a field you're interested in, has led to a renewed interest in something else. So here we have recent developments in the medical and technology fields have led to a renewed interest in prosthetic development. Here's another example of that. Over the past century, so we've got our little time frame, there has been a dramatic increase in something, right? So over the past century, there's been a dramatic increase in the number of children with leukemia. So you could see where you could plug in over the past 20 years, over the past, 300 years, if you could find information on that. So there are all kinds of different ways that you could tweak these and make them work for you. They're meant as a guide, and there are many ways to rearrange them to make them more helpful as well. So one of the most important events of, and perhaps the year, was and then another event. So here you see one of the most important events of 2017 was the election of a president with no political experience. That was the opinion of the class. So I included it in this example as we created those. And they really did quite well using this phrasing. And of course, you could tweak this. This could be any year. This could be any event that you're interested in and doing a paper on. So other examples with a time frame. These are just examples that were thrown in here to kind of help further your toolbox here. So you've got traditionally, and you see person, group of people, profession. So it could be there are several choices there, have subscribed to the belief that. So you've got traditionally, doctors have subscribed to the belief that traditional medicine is not appropriate for advanced medical care. And then the second one down here, the changes experienced by someone over the past decade remain unprecedented. And you've got the changes experienced by the medical field over the past decade remain unprecedented. So then let's talk a little bit about this hook that you have to include in your introduction to really hook the reader and draw them in. Okay, a hook, there are three different ways to do this, and I really think that and these are some examples that were pretty much made up in a class. So except for the quote, someone looked that up on the phone. So keep that in mind that the percentage on here as a disclaimer is incorrect on the third one. So you see, you can provide an interesting example. So you see here, Sunny Efforts is one such company that has developed affordable solar power by teaming up with Walmart and Global Technology Incorporated in hopes of reducing the public's dependence on fossil fuels. And from the way the sentence starts is one such company, you can tell that something in that introduction came before that. So keep in mind that as you're using these examples that you're looking at the context of these and making sure they make sense. So you could also begin with a quote. In this case, people tend to focus on the here and now. The problem is that once global warming is something that most people can feel in the course of their daily lives, it will be too late to prevent much larger, potentially catastrophic changes. And that quote was from the New Yorker, Elizabeth Colbert. And then you can also begin with a staggering statistic, and it could be like this one: 58% of the world's population is overweight. So that's pretty high percentage if it's accurate. And these really provide that reader the hook to get them pulled into your essay and make it interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the thesis. There's actually a separate video on this, but this is where you really tell the reader what you'll be telling them. So it's that simple. You're telling the reader what you will be telling them, and that's important to know before you begin. It also helps you organize your essay very well. So here, not all thesis statements are the same. If you look, we're going to explain something in the first one. Homeschooling parents may incorporate a variety of activities into a child's schedule, including math, science, English, and social activities. I've done some studies on homeschooling, so that was kind of the topic I threw at the class, and these are the ones we came up with for thesis statements to explain and to argue. So the next one is to argue a point, and this one is homeschooling parents may have difficulty ensuring that a homeschooled child receives quality education in math, science, English, as well as appropriate social skills development. And this was written as is the students presented it, so keep that in mind as well. But these are quite good, and the only thing that I would add is that when you're writing a thesis statement, like I said before, it's really good to have that counter argument in there, and you typically see those at the beginning. For instance, you might have, while homeschooling may be seen as a detriment to children's ability to socialize, then you could put the benefits afterward, and you would have your points. And I've seen many different types of structures for essays, but most of the time I believe the instructors ask students to at least include 3 supported points whenever they're writing an essay, and of course sometimes that's many more. Okay, this is something that I threw in to a class that I sort of like, even though we can write thesis statements over, over and over. This little generator, one of the reasons that I share this on this video is because it not only shows you how to formulate a thesis statement down at the bottom of the page, but it gives you you can play with that tool to really see those patterns and how to set those up properly. And there are several different ways that instructors like you to do that. They can be very simple thesis statements to really including all of your points that you're going to discuss in the sentences can be quite long. So let's look at endings really quickly. Endings are, of course, a recap of your information. You're going to say, hey, audience, I'm done. Let's tell you what I told you I was going to discuss in the thesis statement. And then you can suggest to the reader that in the larger context, does it apply to a profession, a person, a business? And also, you want to provide a possible solution, some call to action, or suggestion to answer a question. I'll have more on this in future videos. Thank you for listening.